Today we are discussing Napoleon, Ridley Scott's newest epic, and it stars Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby. The film follows the trials and tribulations of Napoleon Bonaparte, from his rise to emperor and numerous victories in battle, to his tumultuous relationship with his wife Josephine. Not sure if this will surprise anybody, but I'm not a history buff. I do enjoy learning about where countries stood at a certain point in time. I like learning about the battles they fought and who their allies were, but when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, history is not my thing. However, I do love historical epics. You look at films like Gladiator, Troy, The Last Samurai, Kingdom of Heaven, and I know Stanley Kubrick was going to make a Napoleon movie, but it never happened, so when I heard Ridley Scott was going to, I was ecstatic. Because even though I'm not a history buff, I think the historical epic is vital for cinema. If you eliminate the historical epic, you take out an entire genre, and these are movies that have been around for as long as movies have. Napoleon has a similar vibe to those great epics I named, and gets a lot right when it comes to what this film should be. The set design, costumes, battle sequences, music, etc. make the movie feel like a spectacle. When I see a Napoleon movie in theaters, this is the experience I should get. Ridley Scott delivers a movie that feels so cinematically big. This is the type of movie that you must see on the big screen to truly feel its impact. We don't get a lot from this genre on the big screen nowadays, so take it while it's available. And Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon plays this cold, eccentric character who we have seen him play before, but he's never bad at playing this type of character. Now, some people will say Joaquin Phoenix was casted as Napoleon because of his striking resemblance to the real-life figure, whereas others will say this is how Napoleon acted in real life, and that Joaquin Phoenix was spot on. Personally, I think he did a great job alongside his co-star Vanessa Kirby. And for me, all of these things are enough to hold my attention for a nearly 3-hour runtime. I don't need a movie to be historically accurate per se, and I know this movie has gotten bombarded with bad reviews because of its inaccuracies in comparison to the real life story. For me, I'm not somebody who's going to be strict about any of those things, considering I'm not a history buff. I don't know much about Napoleon or his story. All I want when watching Napoleon is the feeling of a historical epic, the same feeling I got the first time I watched Gladiator, and Napoleon delivers in that regard thanks to Ridley Scott. There's a plethora of massive battles, some of the best I've seen in theaters in years. Of course, all the blood and gore that delights me when watching historical epics too. Unfortunately, Ridley Scott's 2010 movie Robin Hood, which I still think is a good film in the historical epic genre, was not rated R. It was PG-13. I have no idea why that was the case, but anytime an epic is rated R, it's the right decision from the studio. Although I do have some issues with Napoleon, I think this movie is lacking in emotional attachment. It tends to bounce around far too often from scene to scene, and year to year the movie moves like a locomotive and never slows down. For pacing, this is good, but for storytelling, this is terrible. As a whole, we see over 20 years of Napoleon's life in this film, but I never once felt gripped by a single story or character. It would have been great had Napoleon been given a central focus, maybe introduce a few villains who clearly were some of Napoleon's biggest oppositions, and then have the rest of the film be about his relationship with his wife, Josephine. Do stuff like that. Not as much bouncing around and showcasing parts of Napoleon Bonaparte's life, but instead find a way to get the audience emotionally invested, because Gladiator would not be a good movie if I didn't care at all about what's happening in the film. But we do care. We care an awful lot about what's happening in the story. When it comes to Napoleon, I don't think I would have cared at all had Napoleon got his head cut off, or his wife, or anybody. It wouldn't matter to me. I don't care that much about Napoleon's journey because the movie never gives us reasons to. Despite some issues, I still think Napoleon is worth watching on the big screen because we don't get too many historical epics like this anymore in theaters. Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby are great. The battle sequences made my jaw drop while watching in theaters. There's a lot to like here, but if you're somebody who's a history buff and can find what is inaccurate in the story, I'm sure you're not going to like this one as much. Plus, I think it should have been more focused in terms of storytelling. I'm giving Napoleon a 7 out of 10. And just so you guys know, if you have an Instagram account, I give out my early scores for each movie I see and review throughout the year. So follow me on Instagram, that is Cinema with Sven. I do all things movies there too, so give me a follow. I hope you enjoy. What did you guys think about Napoleon though? I'm happy we got another historical epic on the big screen, especially coming from Ridley Scott. The guy is not getting any younger, but how do you think they could have improved this movie? And of course, as always, thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.